everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video we are going to be doing a autumn leaves stamping tutorial, so I really hope you all enjoy watching. I absolutely love autumn for nails and I absolutely love stamping, so this has combined two of my favorite things. Now I have already got the bases of my nails done. These are the BTArtbox tips, so these are full cover soft gel tips. If you want to see how I applied these, it is the previous video that I uploaded to my channel. I will try and leave it linked in the cards or the description box below. Now because I had already done the soft gel tips and applied my top coat, I'm just buffing the surface of the top coat so that when we top coat after doing our stamping, the top coat that we're going to apply has something to grab onto. Sometimes if you stamp over top coat or do any kind of nail art over top coat and then top coat, it will chip off a lot easier. So of course if you've already done your nails, you've done your gel, you would do your stamping before you would come in and top coat, so you would be able to skip this step basically. But if you've already done your nails and then decide actually I want to add a little bit of stamping, this is what I would recommend doing. So after doing any kind of buffing, you want to make sure that you clean off any of the dust. So I gave these a good dust and then I'm going to wipe over them with an alcohol wipe. Now I'm going to come in and show you guys everything I'm going to be using to stamp with. So of course you're going to need a stamping plate. I've got one of my favorites, which is Autumn Leaves from Miss Lucy UK. She has some absolutely beautiful stamping plates. Then of course you're going to need a stamper. This is the clear jelly style stamper from Simply Polished. So as you can see, it's double-ended. Now please ignore the state of mine. I do need to order a new stamper, but this one's still working well, so we're going to go with it. And then I also am going to be using the Miss Lucy UK scraper. I love this scraper because it's larger in size compared to a lot of scrapers, so I find it a lot easier to use. If you don't have a scraper, you can use something like a credit card, anything like that. And then of course you're going to use some stamping polishes. So I'm going to be using these two from Clear Jelly Stamper and then this one from Born Pretty. These are a couple of stamping polishes brands that I absolutely love, so I highly recommend those. Then of course you are going to need something to clean your scraper and your plate. So I'm going to be using some alcohol wipes with a little bit of acetone on them because I didn't have any plain dry lint cotton pad things, you know, the lint free pads. Usually I would use them with just acetone to clean up with. So starting off, I'm going to give my stamper a clean. It's just been sitting in the drawer, I haven't used it very much, so I'm going to roll over it with my lint roller. This is what I use to clean my stamper and remove any images that I don't want. Then I'm going to leave this first part of the video in real time and we're going to basically be doing some layered leaves. So I'm going to do all of the orange first of all on all four of my nails. We're going to be doing something a little bit different on the thumb, so we're just going to focus on the first four nails to begin with, and then we're going to switch from the orange and use the brown and then switch to the gold finally. So whilst I'm stamping, I'm going to talk through as well some frequently asked questions I have in a previous or some older stamping videos I've got up on my channel. So hopefully if you've got any questions or you've left any questions, we cover that in this video. But if we don't, please do pop a comment in the comment box with any questions that you might have and I'll be happy to help. So as you can see, we're pretty much done this first now. I work quite quickly when I stamp. As I said, these first four images that we're going to be stamping are in real time. You do need to work fairly quickly when you are stamping, simply because stamping polish dries very quickly. You don't want it to dry in your plate and you also don't want it to dry on your stamper. If it dries on your plate, it's going to be hard to pick up or impossible. And if it dries on your stamper, it's going to be stuck down on your stamper and won't transfer to the nail. Now a lot of the time I actually find that once it's on your stamper, if you've got the tacky layer left behind from your gel polish, then it will transfer even if you slow down. So you don't have to work crazy quick once you've got it picked up on your stamper. Now it's always really, really important that you give your plate a good clean. So you see there, I wiped over it with some acetone and then I went over it with a dry piece of kitchen towel just to make sure all that acetone was removed. Or actually that's what I'm going to do here. This is because if you've got any acetone still sitting on your plate, when you apply your stamping polish, it's effectively going to water it down and then you're not going to get a nice crisp image. Then I like to apply a generous amount of stamping polish. A lot of people apply the stamping polish to half the image and scrape it and then it fills the rest of the image. Now of course you can do this if that's how you prefer to stamp, but a lot of the time I prefer to do it this way. I find I get a lot more of a cleaner pickup by applying a generous amount of stamping polish, and you'll find with stamping polish it lasts a long time time, so it's not necessarily being wasteful. On larger images, like if I'm doing a full nail image, you know, like the larger images, it's going to cover the entire nail. I'll do it that way, where I apply half the image with stamping polish and then scrape it in to the remaining part of the image. But when it's these smaller images, I find it just to cover the entire image in stamping polish, and it gets a nice good clean pickup, especially when you're using images like we are here. Gosh, I can't get my words out today. So especially when you are using these kind of detailed images, you want all the little individual parts of the detail to show up, so you want to make sure that you're filling that with your stamping polish. So as you see, apply a generous amount. I scrape using roughly a 45-degree angle, and I kind of use a fair bit of pressure because you want to make sure you are scraping all of that excess polish off. And with the Miss Lucy scraper, I find that because it's quite big, you can get a good grip on it, so you can scrape nicely. With some of the smaller ones, I feel as though it can feel a bit finicky when you're trying to scrape, so I try to avoid using the smaller style scrapers and sticking with a larger one. Now when it comes to pressing the image down, you want to make sure that you are pressing down nice and firmly. But with your jelly stampers, you want to make sure that if you've got pointed or sharp tips to your nail, that you're being really careful that you're not going to puncture the jelly part of the stamper. This can be quite common when you are stamping on stiletto nails or very pointed almond nails. The nails like I've got on here are quite rounded tips, so I don't have to stress too much about it. But when it comes to stilettos, they can puncture your stamper, so kind of try and avoid pressing the very tip of your nail into that jelly stamper, as it will ruin it, and then once it's punctured, it's a lot harder to use because you're going to have to avoid using that area of the stamper. Now when it comes, jumping back to scraping, when it comes to scraping off that excess stamping polish, you want to make sure you're scraping away a lot of that smeary stamped polish that's on your plate as well, because at certain times, if there's too much polish smeared on your plate, you will pick those smear marks up on your stamper, and then obviously you're going to have to remove that and re-stamp. So it's a lot easier if you try and remove a lot of those smears with your scraper. Using a lighter touch usually gets rid of those. A lot of the time I find I only need to scrape 1 or 2 times, but if I need to go over it again, I will. Now after every color, I will clean my scraper. So we're going to be switching from orange to brown, so you want to make sure you clean all of that orange stamping polish off your scraper, so you're not going to transfer any when you're doing your next coloured stamping. Moving on to the next lot of leaves that we're going to be adding on to the design. I have sped up the remainder of the video because I didn't want to leave the whole video in real time because it would be crazy long. But anyway, these 4 leaves that we're going to add on to the nails next are more solid images. So rather than the first images that we placed down where they've got the little details and the gaps and they're kind of like the outline, these are solid images, and they can be a little bit harder to apply because it can be more tricky to get a full cover opacity to the image. So we're going to clean up our plate anyway, and I'm going to show you guys here what I mean. So I place down my stamping polish, and you can see it's a little bit thin. I hadn't applied it so it's filling the entire image. So when it comes to picking it up, there's these gaps in the image. So we're going to remove that with the scraper and start again, and I'm going to show you guys how I combat this. So when it comes to applying the stamping polish, I'm kind of dripping it in and letting it fill the image, but then I'm only lightly scraping. If you apply your scraper with a firmer scrape or firmer pressure to scrape with, it pulls off a lot more of the polish. And when you're doing these solid images, you don't necessarily want that to happen. You want to make sure that you're getting as much of the stamping polish in the image as possible so you can pick it up. Now with the Miss Lucy plates, I find that they're etched nicely, so this doesn't happen too often and they're a lot easier to use. Some cheaper plates I've used, I find that they're etched too deeply, so it's really hard to fill the image and get a full cover pickup. So do bear that in mind. If you're really struggling with solid images and getting a good pickup, it might not always be you, it might be the plates you are using. Some cheaper plates, for example unbranded ones from places like AliExpress, they're either etched too thinly or they're etched too deeply, and it really does affect the pickup. So I always recommend getting a good quality stamping plates, especially if you're starting out, because you don't want to be getting frustrated with yourself that you can't do stamping and then it isn't actually anything that you're doing wrong. Some brands of stamping plates that I absolutely love are of course the Miss Lucy ones, but then I also love the clear jelly stamper ones, and for a more budget friendly alternative, I love the Born Pretty ones as well. So they're my kind of go-to ones. I've also also got ones from Moyu, which are really good as well. And that just makes it a lot easier, like I was saying, to make sure you get a good pickup. It does play a lot on the quality of your plates. The same goes for stamping polish as well. My go-tos do tend to be Clear Jelly Stamper or Born Pretty. I haven't really tried too many other brands because I've been happy with both of them. Clear Jelly Stamper I think are a little bit dearer in price to Born Pretty, but then they have more of a colour range compared to Born Pretty, which is a little bit cheaper. But as you can see here, we've used 2 colours from Clear Jelly and 1 colour from Born Pretty, and they both stamp absolutely beautifully. Another question I had recently was, what can you do if your stamping polish is too thick? So over time, stamping polish can kind of thicken up, and people add acetone or nail polish remover to it to thin it down. Please don't do this. What this ends up doing is it's breaking down your stamping polish, because obviously acetone's a remover of polish. So if you're adding it in, yes, it's going to thin the consistency, but it's probably going to dilute down the stamping polish and you're not going to get as nice pickup. Now, if you see here, this particular stamping polish, this is one of my favorite stamping polishes, this champagne gold, but it is on the thick side because I've had it absolutely ages now. I'm coming to the bottom of it. So what I tend to do is to only use a smaller amount of it compared to what I was doing with the previous 2 stamping polishes. Still apply it to the entire image, but I'll kind of brush it in a little bit more and then scrape, and I find although it is a little bit thicker, it still stamps perfectly. However, if you are struggling because say a polish has completely gone too thick and too gloopy, you can on the Clear Jelly style get thinner, I believe, and you can also get these little balls that go into your stamping polish, which you can then give it a good shake. Now, personally, I find a lot of my stamping polishes have lasted a long time. I've had these years, especially this champagne gold one, and as long as you make sure to do it up tightly, and if you are using it regular, I don't tend to find that they go off as such or go thick unless they're left for a good couple of years. Like I said, I've had this one I think at least 2, maybe 2.5 years, and it's only just started to go thick recently. Another question that I recently got as well, which I wanted to touch on, is how to prep your jelly stamper. They do not need any prepping. I know that there's been people who have been buffing them and wiping them with alcohol. This actually ruins the jelly stampers. On some of the older style hard stampers, people would buff them and this would be fine, but on the Clear Jelly style stampers, the jelly is quite soft, so buffing it just ends up ruining it. Wiping it with anything like acetone or alcohol dulls it as well, which then affects how you can see through the stamper. So you want to avoid doing anything like that. All I ever clean my stamper with is something sticky. So for example, you can use some double-sided tape, or like I'm using is a lint roller. Now on to the thumbnail, we're going to do some ombre two-tone stamping, and I really loved how this nail turned out. I haven't done anything like this in a long time, and it worked beautifully for the autumn leaves. So I have already done the first one, and I just wanted to show you guys before we talk through the steps on how to do this. But how pretty does this look? I think these 2 colors just blended beautifully for an autumn leaves design. Now what we're going to do is we're going to clean off our plate, of course, with some acetone from that previous image. You want to always make sure that you clean off your scraper after every image when you're doing anything two-tone, just so you don't muddy up the colors for your next image. Then we're going to half and half apply our stamping polish, and you want to scrape it in the same direction that you've applied it so that you get that nice blend going across the center. So obviously if you've got your stamping polish coming down horizontal, then scrape downwards or upwards, keeping it in that horizontal line. Or if you applied it vertically, then the same goes. This just helps create that blend. Another thing I find as well is if you're not happy with how much it's blended after one scrape, just go over once or twice more and it will blend those colors together nicely. Now, of course, when you're applying 2 colors of stamping polish close together like this, you want to make sure that you're not contaminating each color with the previous one. So just check that you haven't, for example here, I've applied the brown first of all and then the orange, so I need to check that I've not picked up any of that brown stamping polish and got it on my orange bottle brush, because it's going to contaminate that orange bottle and add a bit brown in there, which a small amount might not make much of a difference, but you want to avoid doing it. And then like I said, I'm cleaning my scraper after every turn. Now I love this. You could do this with more than 2 colors if you wanted to, but you would need to bear in mind the size of the image. A lot of the images I'm using here are quite small, so it only worked really with 2 colors. It would have been a little bit harder with 3 colors, but certainly if you were doing something like a full nail image, you would be able to do maybe 3, even 4 colors, and it would look absolutely beautiful, because stamping polishes do seem to blend really easily together, so you get that nice gradient between the shades, especially when you're using colors that are from a similar palette. So here where we've got the orange and the brown. Now another thing I absolutely love about stamping is once you have mastered the basics, there are so many different things you can do with it. Like here where we've done the two-tone stamping, there's more layered stamping where you're going to use different layers of an image to create one design. There's things like chrome stamping, stamping with glitter, stamping with foils. So I will try and get more videos like that up on my channel, as I've loved stamping for a very long time, but I do feel like I need to push myself. I even used to as well a long time ago do stamping with Sharpies as well, which is a really cool effect too. So I'm going to try and get a few more of those videos up. If you would like to check out any of the stamping videos I've already done, then I will leave my stamping playlist linked at the end of the video, which I add all of my stamping videos to there, and we go over lots of different things because I absolutely love stamping. But if you do have any requests, do let me know in the comments below. One of the final questions I get is what top coat to use over stamping. This is my favorite one. This is from Kiki London, and this is a top coat that leaves a tacky layer, so it's not a no wipe top coat, but it is my favorite top coat for going over stamping because there's no separation. Sometimes depending on the top coat, what will happen is it will separate over the stamping polish, and I don't know, it kind of like bubbles and then you have to double top coat. I don't get that at all with this stamping polish, so it has become my go-to for over stamping. The only difference is that it leaves a tacky layer which you need to wipe off with an alcohol wipe, but just look at the shine it leaves. Another thing as well, someone said they struggle with doing a matte top coat over stamping. Sometimes a matte top coat smears the stamping polish. I'm not sure why, I don't understand the science behind it, but if you find this happens, then what I would recommend doing is a glossy top coat first, curing that, and then applying your matte top coat, because I don't find a glossy top coat ever smears my stamping, so you don't have to worry about that. And then yeah, lastly, we're just going to come in and apply the cuticle oil just like you would to finish off any other set. And I really loved how cute and cozy these turned out. I loved the colours, and I love the fact that you got that champagne cashmere base underneath rather than a classic white. It just really helped make the stamping pop. A lot of these stamping polishes are highly pigmented though, so you can pop them over darker colours as well as light colours, and they do still pop. I really hope you all enjoyed watching today's video. Please be prepared for more autumnal content coming your way, so I really hope that you like it. If you did enjoy today's video, please do give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment below, let me know how you're all doing. I do love checking in with you all, and if you haven't already subscribed, I would absolutely love it if you hit that subscription button. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have an amazing day. Lots of love. Bye bye.